take a look. How's my, are you able to hear me pretty good?
Yeah, I can hear you. Your audio's fantastic.
Okay. Alright, checking the stream. Oh wow, it's looking weird.
Visual wrong?
Well, the video's not popping up here. Give me a second. Don't know why this happens. Let's see. How dare you? How dare you not work? Let's try this then. Hopefully this will fix the issue. Yeah, kind of, but the window's too small. I think I got the fix in here. Let's try this. Alright, let's take a look. Yeah, I guess for some reason the window's like off. It's just positioned incorrectly. I have no idea why it does this sometimes. It's just such a pain. Let's check one more thing here. I think it has something to do with the resolution. I don't know. Okay, now this, where's that window at? Okay, I'm just trying to fix this here. I'm a little confused. The window just disappeared. Oh, why does this stuff always happen to me? I'm gonna close the window and then I'm gonna come back and see if that worked. Alright, have to turn off that family chatter there.
Yeah. Yeah, that I know.
Okay, now let's check the stream. Let's see if it's displaying the right stuff now. And okay, let's retarget the window. And that should work now, I think. Alright, well, the window's there. It's just smaller than I like it to be. That's fine. The visuals are there. And we can work with that.
Yeah, it's primarily a podcast anyway, right?
Yes. So, we are here today to start on Book 8, The Path of Daggers by Robert Jordan. And here today we have Tristram. Say hello.
Hi, guys.
And we don't know when Andrew is going to show up or if, but he may pop along during the podcast at some point.
We hope.
So, this is Book 8, and we're going to discuss in this episode the prologue to Chapter 9. Now, Book 8 is a bit smaller than what you're used to. I think it's less than 500 pages, if I'm not mistaken. And it is only 29 chapters, which is a little bit, when we think of Jordan, it's always 50 plus chapters. So this is a shorter book.
It's still like, I'm still pretty sure it's like over 600, but like you're right, normally it's over like 900 or in some cases even 1,000 pages, so it's still, like you say, almost a third shorter?
Yeah, it really depends, what version you're looking at. I know my trade paperback version, which has like the bigger pages, it's closer to like 500 pages. I know if you're looking at a mass market, it's going to probably be 600 or 700.
I think mine's like 680, something like that. The high 600s, but the point is still the same. It's like a surprisingly short book compared to several of this.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this book too, it seems like the books now are just completely strung together timeline-wise, because this book actually starts, I would say, concurrently with one of the chapters in the last book.
Yeah, and he's done that. He did that with the last one as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did that when he changed the point of view to Savannah during the battle at Dumais Wells. In this case, we do get a prologue that covers a couple different characters. The first character that we talk about in the prologue is the ruler of Kandor. That's the perspective we get. And her name is Atheniel, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's basically kind of like a King's Moot for Borderlanders.
For Borderlanders only.
Yeah, so the Borderlanders are meeting up to decide what to do about Rand, and we have all of the big heavies in the Borderlanders, basically all the rulers of the little kingdoms in the Borderlands.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure why I guess it was interesting that they chose this character, because we know about some of the other characters that are introduced here. So we're talking about Tenobia, and we all, of course, know about Agomar, and I think one of the ones we don't know too much are kind of like these minor Borderlander nobles.
But I think they, I think they, like you said, they did this on purpose, like to choose Atheniel, because we, like you said, we've been to Shinar, right? That's what we thought all the Borderlands were like. That's the view we had in Eye of the World and in the Great Hunt. But we also know quite a bit about Saldia because of Faile and her family. So the choice of using Arafel or Kandor is, I think, deliberately to give us that Borderlander perspective that we maybe haven't had yet, and to emphasize that while they are in some ways the same as Borderlanders, they are as unique and different as all Jordan cultures. And yeah, I think it was a deliberate authorial choice.
Yeah, so we do see some more descriptions of their culture through the eyes of Kandor, the leader of Kandor. So she does talk about, or at least kind of expresses her views regarding Saldean, I guess what you would call anger management, or whatever you want to call it, or lack thereof. But this shows like an interesting contrast to how we see Faile.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just comparing Tenobia to Faile seems a bit tame.
But also, like, I think one of the things I got from this is, like, everyone in Saldia is just obsessed with relationships, right? Like, obsessed with it. Because she's, like, part of, like, the backstory to this prologue is that she's trying to hook her up. And if you've ever gone through that experience of where one of your friends wants to hook you up with someone else, and you're just like, oh my goodness, don't do it. Even if you think, well, it might go well, there's still that feeling of, oh, really? And so I thought it was quite a cool little subplot to this chapter that people could, like, I can't relate to a queen of a mythical fantasy country, but I can relate to, like, one of my mates trying to set me up with someone else and just being like, oh, please don't. You're so well-meaning, but please don't. And then like, they have the language of fans and the whole how important it is to Faile that she gets her man and all of this, and husband and mum and dad's permissions and all of that sort of stuff, and how you think, oh, it's like a whole cultural thing. It's not just Faile. It's not just her crazy family.
Yeah, so we get to see that expansion, right? So once we meet Faile, we're like scratching our heads, like, really? And then we meet her parents, and they're like, oh, I see. And then we get to this scene, and we're like, okay, they're all like that.
And but obviously, one of the things that's really cool, I remember when I first read this scene, I was like, yes, Borderlanders, right? These are like the rock hard guys. These are the ones who don't think shadowspawn are myths. They've always known it was real. I'm like, these are the guys. Where have they been, right? Rand declared himself the dragon. These are the guys who should have rocked up with armies on day one. And they've just been mysteriously absent. And like Uno and his guys from Shinar are like super loyal to Rand, and you're like, but where's the other thousands? Like, the Borderlanders are the people who shouldn't need convincing. And this was our like first glimpse of them really in the series. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, are they finally coming? And then it's all really cryptic, isn't it?
Well, they do say that there is a bit of a jumble when it comes to Saldeia, because if you remember, Davon Bashir was sent down to capture Mazrim Time, and then what ends up happening is he swears fealty to Rand, and now Mazrim Time is their ally. So Denovia's like, WTF, what's going on here? Like, how can we really trust the Dragon Reborn when our sworn enemy is now on the side of it? Like, what are we going to do here? So she's kind of a little apprehensive about things concerning Rand.
She sent her best general and he switched sides.
Yeah, basically.
But the thing is that, like, it says that, like I think one of the line I was reading through my notes, it says in the text that they were going to perform a ceremony that had been recorded on like 7 times since the breaking. Like, it's like, oh, what is this ceremony? And they don't really explain it. Like mix their blood and they swear an oath. And oaths are pretty serious in Randland. Like, people who swear oaths they tend to mean them. And like, we have people have magically empowered oaths, but even oaths that aren't magically empowered are fairly serious business. And they say that they are one to the death, and that they will find Althor and find the dragon and do what needs to be done, or find Althor and do what needs to be done. And that's pretty cryptic. And so I remember when we read this and we didn't have Winter's Hunt, and we didn't have the Gathering Storm, because actually they don't get to him quickly, do they?
They take a while. Yeah.
They take several books, and some of the camps actually thought that they were going to kill him, that they were going to try and kill Rand, that they thought that was what the pact was.
Well, it's a good job by Jordan to keep us guessing. While trying to read like what's going on, because I know they hint at, oh, we're taking 13 Aes Sedai with us.
Yeah.
So we're thinking like, what are they trying to do here?
Because they tried to stop Mazrim Taim, right? Like when there's a false dragon, they try and stop him. And so you're like,
yeah. So it's really cryptic about what they're gonna do.
It is.
But of course, down the line they do stick by their oaths and go with Rand. But yeah, they throw a little wrench.
It could have been
a
few things. Yeah, it could have been a few. But yeah, and then we get to Verin, one of my favorite characters in the whole series.
This is an interesting little part. So.
Super important.
Yeah, Verin is back talking to some sisters and trying to get some information. She's specifically targeting warderless Aes Sedai that are under, I guess, watch of the Wise Ones.
Yeah.
So she's going to different Aes Sedai and talking to them. And I guess my guess for this is because my assumption is that a warder would be able to tell if she was using some type of compulsive
bleed.
And
yeah, exactly. We almost don't need to guess, because she then does use this compulsion on them, and it's interesting what she says. She says she like in her head, we're in her head, so there's no reason for her to lie. But Verin's so cryptic that even in her head, she's not telling the full truth.
Yes.
But she says something like she picked it up from some wilders. But it's still, one of the things is, this is one of the first concrete hints that Verin may be bad.
Yeah, so she does explain, give a really good explanation about the two main weaves that wilders particularly use, which are eavesdropping and a very low level compulsion.
Yeah.
And I kind of would think that Verin would be super interested in wilders and these things. So, and we do see that a lot of wilders do use these little tools.
Yeah, like the Theodrin, made boys like her kind of thing.
And Nynaeve was a bit of an outlier, but it seems like even Moiraine, her first to-go thing was to do eavesdropping.
Yeah.
Before she got admitted into the tower. So Verin explains that she learned it by interrogating wilders. It's also weird too that none of them seem to remember any of these weaves. So I'm wondering, how is it that the Aes Sedai are getting them to forget these weaves, except there are Aes Sedai that still know the eavesdropping weave. It just seems that the compulsion one is the one that they seem to forget.
I think the wilders come in and they know it, they're just told not to use it. If you remember, we have some evidence of that in the books. So for example, Liandrin, who is all of our favourite red, she obviously has a compulsion, doesn't she? We see her use it in Great Hunt. And she says that obviously when they realized that she could do that, she was forbidden from doing it. But she basically was like, of course I'll forbid. I would never do it now that I know that's bad. And then of course, totally does. And that again is why I say that the fact that Verin knows it doesn't shock me. We know that loads of them know eavesdropping weaves. They're not supposed to use them. But one of the things about the Aes Sedai is they're secretive from themselves. Loads of Aes Sedai have individual weaves that they refuse to share with other sisters. one of the things that Egwene will bring crashing down in later books. This whole secrecy. She's like, no, we've got to be open, we've got to be honest, we've got to share everything we have. Really, really powerful move by Egwene, because she's not seeking for individual power. She's seeking for the betterment of the tower as a whole. And but this is one of the things that tells us that Verin, though a nice old woman in some ways, definitely we weren't wrong to think that there's something more going on, because she knows she shouldn't be using compulsion. She knows that. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that compulsion in any form is definitely one of the bad no-no weaves, and yet she's justifying it here and using it. And so the reader is like, oh, maybe Verin dodgy, and she's having wardless sisters so no one can tell. So is this a little bit like torture? Is this a little bit like torture?
Well, she's definitely not doing this out in the open.
No.
So, yeah, this is a bit shady.
It's definitely shady. But it's also cool that she tells us that, like, the compulsion isn't like the domination one. It gets them to find a reason inside themselves to do what she wants.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like the Ta'Veren-ness in a way, because the Ta'Veren-ness doesn't force people to say things that they normally wouldn't say. It almost works kind of the same way, right? They kind of find a reason within themselves to justify them blurting out whatever information they were trying to hide.
Yeah. I think the Ta'Veren-ness may be a bit more random, less controlled. This is deliberate.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's one other thing is, as well, I think we just have to mention it. There's a specific quote in this bit by Verin that's like quoted a lot by fans, which is, she thinks to herself that it was 71 years since she made her last big mistake. And so the theories on that rolled for a long time.
And the weird thing is didn't Cadsuane have a similar number?
Cadsuane's even larger. It's a bigger number, but it's one of those numbers that you're like, wow, that's a whole lifetime, right?
Yeah, basically.
Cadsuane is like when the crazy old toothless wilder dumps her in the water and teaches her some lessons, and obviously Verin is the big reveal of her entire story.
So another one of the things too is that there's kind of this conflict between those who have sworn fealty to the dragon and those who haven't. So all those who haven't are seemingly tortured by the wise ones by forced labor, usually menial tasks that will really amount to nothing.
Just like making them slaves.
Basically, they're making them slaves, but they're not producing anything worthwhile.
To break their spirit.
Yeah, so the one Aes Sedai that Verin is talking to, she's super upset that Verin has sworn fealty and would not accept any healing from Verin, but she's in a pretty bad state. Eventually, Verin basically tells her the how futile it is to kind of resist, and she kind of gives in and allows her to be healed. But one of the Aes Sedai did escape.
And she does it by killing people, which pretty much tells us that she had to be Black Asha.
Yeah, so that's going to be Cadarin Alrudden, and another major thing, because I know, even though I think Verin is supposed to be, well, at least she is acting meek around the wise ones.
Oh yeah, Verin's totally got the face on.
Yeah, so when she hears that news, she kind of breaks that face and kind of breaks out of character and says, oh, she's red. It's going to be very dangerous for Rand to have her running around. So she just breaks character a little bit there. But so I guess, because I didn't read these books as they were coming out. So, was this chapter a highly debated
Oh,
clue?
the whole prologue, but yeah, the prologues that Jordan does were always huge food for discussion. And this was before we did as much like on YouTube and stuff, and we did, so it was in places like chat boards,
Yes.
and you would have huge threads on things like Dragon Mount and what TC. But absolutely, Verin was one of the most hotly discussed characters, and also one of the things we used to do is guess who the next Dark Friend's going to be, because every book we would find out some new Dark Friends, and so like when Katarine did this, a bunch of people were like, "Yeah, knew it, called it," and like other people were like, "Oh yeah," and because there was always reasons why someone might or might not be, especially sisters, right?
Yeah.
Because we knew there was a bunch of blockage. And so whenever you see a sister doing something like putting herself in opposition or seeming very old school, like, oh, she's got to be... And like, for example, Elayne, like, loads of people thought she was Black Aja. Like, loads. There was a huge... and they would present evidence from earlier books about why she definitely was and how it was all going to come out. And then, of course, she wasn't.
Yeah,
So
I think the
cool.
Alviarin situation probably settled that case there.
It does. That is when we figure it out. But it took, like, because remember, she's introduced in book 1, and she's like a real hard ass. So we're all like thinking, oh, like there were people calling her black in book 1. But so anyway. So it was an ongoing thing. So this prologue was juicy meat for theory crafting. But most of his prologues are. He loves a good prologue.
Yeah, another thing, which is probably the last line in the Verin POV that kind of gets your mind stirring, is that she thinks to herself that she needs to keep Rand alive until it's time for him to die.
Yeah.
We're like, that doesn't sound quite right.
Doesn't sound good. Yeah, and like, but the thing is,
it's either true. It could be true to the prophecy, though.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and those were the arguments that were presented. And you see, we've even heard Rand start to accept that like, I've got to live until I'm gonna die. And as he hardens, especially now that Dumai Wells has happened, he's very much kind of like a man walking to his own death.
So it almost seems like, so Verin is using these forbidden leaves, but she wants to make sure that the prophecy comes to pass.
And later on, we even have the experience, don't we, of a dark sister helping Rand because she thinks he needs to live long enough to die in the right place.
True.
And Moridin at one point says, "Hands off Rand," doesn't he? It's like,
that's right. They're all trying to make sure that Rand
dies, but not
at the right
till
spot.
We say.
Yeah.
And so this doesn't prove Verin as evil or good, but whichever way you were already thinking, you could use it as evidence.
Like justification.
Yeah. For whichever argument you want. It's a little bit like being a Republican or a Democrat. You can take the same fact and it means whatever you want it to mean. In support of your own theory.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
So next POV we got Moridin.
Yeah.
And Moridin, he's just chilling, playing some stones.
Yeah, love that.
He explains that this game is kind of morphed itself, and he's actually very familiar with the previous incarnations of the game.
Yep. It's stones now, isn't it? It's the Age of Legends version of stones.
Yeah, so he's playing stones. He knows like the original version of the game. There was a Fisher.
Yeah, the Fisher King. Yeah.
Yeah, so we got the Fisher King reference, and it's basically, this chapter isn't a whole lot. It's just kind of setting some color for Moridin.
I think there's... Sorry, you weren't finished.
No, I was just saying, like, it already seems at this point that Moridin's sanity might be questionable.
Just a little.
So
That guy's off. He's off the reservation, Dusty.
yeah,
He can't even see it in the rear view mirror.
yeah. So he's I think it's because of the true power, right?
Yeah.
That kind of sets you in the path to insanity.
It's implied anyway, like because the saw crosses eyes when he starts saying all the crazy stuff. But just a couple of things about the chapter from an authorial point of view. The way that Jordan uses games, not only to set the culture and make it realistic, but he uses stones to demonstrate tactics. People who are good at stones are good at like the game of houses. They're good at battle strategy. So people who rock at that, it's an indicator. It's like what people use in modern day thrillers when they say the character is a chess master. They're always trying to imply they've got this incredible strategic thinking ahead. So one, it shows that Moridin is a battle general, a master manipulator, and a master of the game of houses. But secondly, the game is an analogy for the conflict between the light and the dark. And the cool thing is that the Fisher, is not on both sides. He is an individual piece, and you can use your pieces to manipulate him. And if you get him on the other guy's back row, he wins for you. But if he gets on your back row, he wins for them. So your best piece can become your undoing. And obviously, they clearly show that Rand is the Fisher. So basically, the dragon is the key. He could defeat evil, but he could also be the way the evil defeats the right. So I love that. That metaphor is excellent, and it's played into a couple of times throughout the series. And when you do, snakes and foxes, that's another example of when Jordan has used the game to imply and demonstrate a plot-relevant point, which I just think is very tasty. Great use of culture to demonstrate. And then the other thing is that he has the saw. That means that he is the only one with the true power, which is just absolutely crucial. And he also, very minor point, but he has the mind traps, which remind us that there's people under his control, which we know one is I forgot her new name, but also the one that's Lanfear Reborn, Sindane.
Is that one of them? Because I don't know if she's been mentioned yet.
Well, but he has the two.
Okay.
No, we didn't know that he had it, but we realize when he fondles these two that he has someone else. You know, we don't know who, but it's like, again, it's that, so he's so favored, right? Other people are like Forsaken are being made his playthings, and he also has like a weird shadowspawn. I think this might even be the first time we see one. Might have seen one before, but the what are they called? It's a Zomare. The beautiful humans that can't talk but can think.
I didn't even know that was a shadowspawn.
Well, maybe it is a bit dodgy to call them shadowspawn. We've always called them shadowspawn. I say we as if I represent the community. The community has grouped them with shadowspawn because even though their stock is human, they're genetically modified. Their brains don't work properly. They're telepathic, so they aren't human anymore. Not on the normal sense. They're genetically modified humans, I should say, rather than maybe the shadowspawn. But they've been messed with so much by the shadow, and it's mentioned that to have them, he must have got them out of a stasis box. So that's another thing that makes me think of them like the Gholam, like the Dracha, like the Forgers, or like, instead of like as just they're not just dark friends, are they? They're treated more like objects than people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, so we can start to go in the first chapter.
Sorry, I went off there.
No problem at all. It's going to be called To Keep the Bargain. So, interesting. The first, how all the Jordan books start off with the winds.
Yeah.
And we get a glimpse of Tumulting, right? And there's the people and they're working the land, and they're kind of describing the Choden Call.
Yeah,
And,
the second one, because we've seen the male one at the Karhainen.
Yeah, so the male one's near Karian, and this one is in Tramalking. And we see the wind blowing over some Seanchan fleet and onward towards Ebadar. So, Ebadar! So we go into Aviendha's point of view.
Yep.
And I found it quite different from one of her previous points of view.
Yeah?
Well, I remember in her previous point of view, it seemed very, how do I say it, like very OCD to me. It's like she is extremely concerned about Toe and G and the intertwinings. Maybe it was different because she was surrounded by Aiel. So in this case, she's kind of out of her own culture. So maybe that's why she's not so much concerned about that interaction. And maybe she's adapting.
I agree. I think you've said that very well. I think it's showing that over time, and later, sometimes Aviendha even notices and gets upset with herself about it. Like she's like, oh, why am I liking dresses and worrying about looking pretty in silk? It's like, it's disgraceful. And she's saying it to herself. Like, I'm not allowed to enjoy this girly stuff. But actually, it shows that she is. The wetlands have some nice stuff, and she is learning to like it.
So, she's kind of fretting over...
Yeah.
Because the last situation we had was that Oliver was missing.
Yeah.
So, but she has a more important task to perform at this point, so she kind of left Matt to go ahead and do the search. Because their priority is to take care of the Bowl of the Wind situation, which is extremely important.
The entire world, one teenager.
Yeah.
No.
So, they're all gathering up. We got Lan and Nynaeve arguing over, I guess over, what was it, like he was trying to make sure that she was protected.
But he's marrying her, so.
Marrying her and her warder, that's his job, that's his duty. Plus it's kind of his duty as a husband as well.
Gang straight.
So, but they run into Teslan. Was Teslan one of Elida's Aes Sedai?
Yes, I think she's from the Tower. I think she's good, even though she's red. She's not like black.
Yeah.
And she's like she's full Tower Aes Sedai, but she did side with Leda, but she didn't do so for evil. She was convinced. She's one of those people who works against them, but isn't evil. Okay.
So, at the moment, Elayne hasn't kind of solidified the plans, and it seems that Elayne is really starting to take charge in some things, because it seems like Nynaeve is a bit goo-goo-eyed at the moment, kind of distracted.
Can you blame her? Life is going well.
Yeah. So Elayne has to step up a bit, and when they talk to Teslan, they kind of tell her that there's this dangerous monster. Teslan does not believe them, because nobody's ever heard of this thing, and we know all about Aes Sedai arrogance. If they've never heard of it, it doesn't exist.
In our archives, it doesn't exist.
So, Teslan basically dismisses their claims as hogwash and whatnot.
Yep.
So they meet up with these Windfinders, and I think their leader is Renila. The Windfinders, when you guys were first reading about these Windfinders, what were your takes? Because they're kind of
They're
aggravating.
annoying. They are aggravating. They are aggravating. You just want to punch them all in the face, along with the mistress of the ships. They, they're all just they're so arrogant, and I think you're meant to find the Aes Sedai being so arrogant in the past that the fact that they're all being treated like idiots now makes you kind of feel good that the Windfinders are giving them their comeuppance. But I don't know. I found pretty much even the nice Windfinders supposedly just made me grind my teeth. I do not enjoy the stuff about. I mean, it's an interesting culture, but I am one of the few people who's glad that we never really went to Tremalking and never got more into sea folk, because I just find them a little boring and aggravating and annoying. I hate their arrogance. Aiel arrogance is their kind of arrogance, and well, everyone in Randland seems to have a kind of arrogance, but especially the Aiel, the wise ones, and the sisters. But I find them all far more interesting and easier to grasp, get along with, and engage with than I do the Windfinders. On the other hand, I think that possibly shows that Jordan just did his job very well. Like, what he's done is he's shown me a culture that's so different from my own that I don't feel comfortable with it because it's so alien.
Yes. So, at this point,
slap them all.
they're trying to gather their forces. So it's going to be the Windfinders, the Kin, and the Aes Sedai.
The Windfinders are crucial because one of the things it establishes is if you're talented in a specific area, you can weave far beyond your actual power. So some of these Windfinders are not as powerful as people like Naive, but they can handle much greater weaves of air because they're so elite in using air and weather weaves.
Yes, that, and the Windfinders don't know about using a circle. So, like you said, if they have the talent, and they could just put that power behind them with the circle.
Yeah. Circles are like huge power multipliers, and it's one of the ways that like the tower has been in charge all this time, you know? And so it's like the tower is reluctant to share its secrets, but this is saving the world, so
yeah, they do. Yeah, when we get in the later chapters, they do have a bit of conflicts about circles, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So during this little thing, they actually task the Kin to look over Ispan, who is a Black Sister. They are extremely uncomfortable doing this.
Yep.
And I know Ispan tries to intimidate them by. She's basically saying, "Oh, I'm on here on Elida's authority." So the Kin are like, they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
That's why they feel so comfortable holding Ispan and shielding her away. So, of course, everybody starts to bicker, and Nynaeve is just like not having it. She often is the person that is screaming at everybody when they start bickering and try to get things back in center.
Just back to the very beginning, right? It's Emmons Field all over again. Keeping the women circling the men in line. Town council. Shout at everybody.
Yeah, so their plan is to go to a place called the farm. It's not the farm that we know. Like, it's just a farm where a bunch of Kin hang out.
Yeah, it's the Kin farm, not the Black Tower farm.
Yeah, so Aviendha is tasked with making a gateway, and she struggles very hard making this gateway. And eventually she's looking around, and she believes to see the Gholam.
Yeah.
So this puts her on high alert.
Yeah.
Extremely high alert, which
So
is...
that thing comes down, they're all dead, unless Matt turns up.
Yeah. So this actually also plays into what she does next in the next chapter.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and get into that next chapter. It's called Unweaving.
Oh yeah, I forgot she did this. It's her special talent, isn't it?
Well, she has... It's actually not a talent, but she has a talent that has to do with that, which her talent is to be able to see residues.
But she,
because of that talent of having residues, she knows that it's important to unweave things.
but also she can unweave it without killing everybody. Unweaving is dangerous stuff.
Oh yeah, extremely. It's extremely dangerous stuff. And she does it I've done this a bunch. And everyone gets pretty pissed off, especially the older Aes Sedai. So, everybody goes through the gateway.
Yeah.
And we kind of have a sizing up of all the different the users of the one power. And it's shown that most of them aren't really that strong. But the strongest ones that they do find are the younger not younger Aes Sedai, but the younger power users. And one is detected to be as strong as Nynaeve.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because Nynaeve's even stronger than the Power Girls, and she's even stronger than Elayne. And
yeah, she's the strongest of the three. That's for sure.
Because it's suggested that Egwene, Elayne, and Aviendha are kind of a level.
Yeah, I know Aviendha does say that she believes that Elayne is stronger, but that she might have the potential to be on par with Elayne.
Yeah, they're in the same bracket for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Nynaeve is always stated as being stronger, always.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, right now we are in a Elayne point of view. Mm-hmm. So they're going through the gateway, and then they start looking through some of the after they're through, they make sure that the warders go first to the scout. While they're scouting, Elayne is looking through some of the Ter'angreal to look for choice finds. She finds a few things. Some of them. One of them is a flexible rod.
Oh, yeah. It's a pain thing, isn't it? It can it's literally just a torture device or something like that.
Black rod.
Yeah. It says that which touches feels the pain of 100 people or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the things is a 2-foot bronze statue of a guy with a beard.
The bearded man holding a book. Yeah. This is Robert Jordan's only self-insert in the series.
Is that what that was?
That is confirmed, yes.
Okay.
That was confirmed by his wife. So basically, it's the Ter'angreal would tell you the stories, right? So it's like a I don't know, a pod, it just plays stories. It's like an audiobook reader, and so it's how cool is that? Because it says that she channels fire and the figures cause the words to appear. I can't remember what the words are, but they mean fiction and non-fiction. It's
the library.
Fiction and so this old man, jolly old man holding a book is like a Ter'angreal library, and Jordan's only self-insert in the series. Had to be mentioned.
So other couple things are a crystal vial with some red liquid inside. A box with red and green stripes,
Yep.
and a blue stone with like a root carving on it.
Yeah, the stones. If it's the right one I'm thinking of, and I think it is, it's the one that she has a feeling it could grow something, but not a plant, if you sang the right song to it, and that's really cool. You know, it gives you the idea that maybe this is the way you could make a the ways, right? Because it says it can grow. It's not a plant, and she has this idea of like holes. She specifically mentions holes. I can't remember the exact passage, but like that was the implication. And one of the things I really wished had happened is I thought the Augier were gonna remember the song, and I thought the Tinkers were gonna find it, realize the Augier song was the one they were looking for, and in the last battle that they were going to sing and recreate the true ways, and like have green men again and stuff. I wrote a fan fiction called Traveling to Tarmangaiden, and that's what I had happening in it. I'm just saying. And so when they talked about this, I thought this would be used like to create a new ways, like an uncorrupted. But anyway, didn't happen. But that's what that looked like it was gonna be.
Okay, so next we get some scolding from Vandene.
Well, what else is new?
Oh yeah, well, the thing about Ter'angreal is there has been some pretty horrible accidents have happened because they didn't know what these things did. So Vandene basically explains, hey, these aren't things to be played with. You can still yourself, and then of course we're in Elayne's head, so she's just super confident that nothing bad would ever happen to her.
And also like they don't fully understand how talented Elayne is, and it is an actual talent that just by holding a Ter'angreal she kind of knows what it does. Like no one's had that talent like in living memory.
She doesn't have to actually use it.
No, and so like that's why we got all the information we just did. I mean, like it's a super important talent. She's like the Magitech, one of the Power Girls, and
she can make stuff.
and figure stuff out that's already been made, which is just a super powerful ability in this world where we're rediscovering all this old magic. And remember, if she ever gets to the tower, they've got loads of stuff, haven't they, that they don't dare use or investigate. She would be able to work it all out. This is one of the reasons that Elayne, Aviendha, Nynaeve are super valuable to the tower. Not only because they're powerful users, but because they have abilities that haven't been seen in years. You know, Dreamer, Aviendha's abilities with seeing residues, Elayne's abilities with Ter'angreal. These guys are off the charts. Healing, stilling. It's like old things become new. So yeah, it shows like they're like, you can't do that. No, other people couldn't do that. I'm rediscovering. It is dangerous for me. But it's no surprise that Vandene doesn't get that.
Yeah, well, she's kind of stuck in old Aes Sedai ways, and
as is everyone else, right?
Yeah, it's like the new age is here. Welcome to the new age, and they really don't have the time to adhere to tradition. They need to get their butts moving and solving these problems. So well, during that conversation, Merlilla just shouts, like shrieks, no, and Aviendha is unraveling a gateway weave.
Yep.
Everyone.
I didn't even realize how big a deal that was until this chapter.
Well, you really learn how much of a big deal it is, maybe, chapter 7? But, and so everyone is really upset with Aviendha about doing what she's doing. So basically, she's taking a weave apart, and her justification for that is that, well, one, she saw the Gholam, and she doesn't want anybody, any dark friends, to know where they're going. So she says that she has the ability to look at this gateway and know exactly where it's going to be, even if the gateway has been dissipated naturally.
Yeah.
So
All
she
that's
needs...
news to us, right? We're all like,
Yeah, everything.
oh,
It's all
really?
news to us. It's news to Aes Sedai. The Aes Sedai do admit that that ability does exist, but it's extremely rare. So they kind of deny that, oh, there's not going to be anybody following us with that ability. That ability is just too rare. It's not worth you unraveling the gateway.
Yeah.
But anyway, she makes it look easy. She basically says, well, if you can undo embroidery, you can undo weaves. It's not big of a deal. Not that big of a deal. They basically tell her to never do that again.
Yeah.
Because they're so afraid of what could happen. Well, basically, the biggest fear for an Aes Sedai is stilling. So that's what they say. You could have been stilled. They don't care if you get blown up into bits. They care if you get stilled. so, yes, now we know about Aviendha's new talent to read residues and her ability to pull apart weaves. And it's not really, I don't consider it a talent because she's had a lot of practice with it, which she kind of explains later on of how much practice she's had.
You've got a good point there, Justy. It's not a talent with a capital T. It's not like a super Aes Sedai skill, but the thing is, she's more skilled at that than basically anyone else.
Yeah, because she's been doing it for a long time.
She's and most people who try that don't get to practice because they die.
Yeah.
So she is very, very skilled at it. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
But you're right. It's not a talent.
Yeah, the residue read though is definitely a talent. So
and
she has that talent. Yeah. So they get moving through the gates, and even Elayne, like, talks to Aviendha and says that wasn't a good idea. So we do get a POV switch to Moridin, who actually had seen all of this, and he is very surprised. He calls them primitives, by the way, the people of this age.
Absolutely. He frequently does. So do the others sometimes. They're like, these are children, you know.
And he can't quite believe what just happened. He observed the gateway being unraveled, but he says that he's surprised that these primitives are finding things that out that we never found out in the Age of Legends. So he mentions this, the Unweaving, the warder bond is another thing he mentions that they didn't have. I think he mentioned one other thing, I just don't remember what it was. But I think those are the two important ones, the warder bond and the unraveling of weaves. So he also notices as well that he's heard some rumors about the Bowl of the Winds, and he's actually he's kind of doubtful about what it could do. But he also knows that the Great Lord, which he calls the Dark One, is the one that's responsible, and if they do try to change the weather, it's not going to be he's going to be upset, basically.
Yeah, because basically it is his touch on the world, and he wants it to be that way because it's causing racket.
So I guess while he's like contemplating this stuff, doesn't he kill like the servant dude that was sitting there?
Oh yeah, he does, because the Gholam eats it. Isn't it because of the not the Sa?
It's the true power. Like he didn't have like total control, and it sounded like he got a little upset.
So, one of the things that we've been discussing here, just while Dusty handles work, is that the different weaves that people use, there are some that are forgotten from the Age of Legends, but there's some that come up. And one of the reasons is that things like the Border Bond were not needed in the Age of Legends, because men and women both wielded the power as Aes Sedai together, and the circles are limited in the New Age because they don't realize what they were possible to do in the previous age, when by merging men they could massively expand the circles. And in a way, a water bond is like a special kind of circle, isn't it? With just one person in it and one who cannot channel.
Yeah, certainly.
But not necessary in the Age of Legends, right?
Because they had such, access and easy access to technology.
Yep.
There wouldn't really be a reason to do that type of bond. And we know how and it seems like we do get the sense that Ter'angreal must be incredibly difficult, at least in this age, to come by, because it seems like none of the Forsaken have the ability to create these things.
Yeah, it makes it is surmised that there isn't just magic in the making, that there was also some technology involved in the making of some, at least, of the Ter'angreal.
Yeah, so we do get this sense because Moridin, he thinks about possibly hijacking these Ter'angreals and pursuing and going after them. Yeah.
And same with Angreal and Sa'angreal. The Forsaken tried to discover them. No one ever suggests making one.
Yeah, so either the talent to make these things is so rare that none of the people that knew how to do it survived until present day. Like, even none of the Forsaken know how to do it.
That would seem surprising, would it not? If,
it would be.
There's not just two Forsaken, is there? There's tons of them. And so I think it definitely suggests to me that there's some equipment or tools that were available that are no longer available, or that the Forsaken maybe have lost some of themselves in the long sleep. That's also possible. But I think it's the first. I think some of the things that were available in the Age of Legends are no longer available.
Yeah, it also makes me think, do any of the reincarnated Forsaken ever get any new abilities, or they kind of just stay the same?
They're either the same or weaker.
The same or weaker, so they cannot get any new talents or abilities imbued when they get reincarnated.
It doesn't look like it, but remember, one of Jordan's constant little jibes at the Dark One is that the Dark One keeps his promises as technicalities, and that he actually is giving false coin. So he's like, oh yeah, you'll be immortal, you just probably won't like the life that you have, etc. And so remember, Jordan is a guy who had his own philosophy, if you like, or religious take on the world. But one of the things that he definitely is implying is that sort of, if people tell you something that's probably too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true, and nothing comes without a price. And definitely the lies told to the Forsaken. When you think of someone like, oh my goodness, I've forgotten his name, the Bard, the one of the Forsaken.
Asmodean?
Asmodean doesn't come across as a megalomaniac, does he? And yet he's one of these 13 great evils. But what he wanted was just for his music to live forever. And tempted by the idea, if you never die, your music will be eternal. And then he gave up all that he was, and in fact he gave up his chance to be who he could have been, and instead is remembered not as a great musician, but instead as a killer and a liar and one of the 13 greatest evil people. And I'm sure if he'd realized that before the fact, he never would have fallen, because I don't think he is Voldemort style evil. He just isn't, if you read his character.
Yeah, I got the same reading for Asmodean as well, because once he kind of came into the fold with Rand, he seemed comfortable.
Yeah.
He didn't really seem that he was trying to plot against anybody. So it's like, oh, I'm not connected to the Dark One right now. Awesome.
Yeah. But it just shows that the Dark One's promises are tainted, always.
So before we end this chapter, yeah, as we discussed earlier, the Gholam comes upon that body for which Moridin had just killed,
Yeah.
and he devours it.
Yep. Not good. And one of the other things that's strange, again, I don't think it's ever fully explained, but the Gholam it can follow them. Even though they've gone through a gateway, even though that gateway has been unraveled, it's not that it knows where the gateway was going, but it just it knows where they are. Once it's got you, and it's after you, it can follow you basically forever. It is an unstoppable force.
Yeah, it could sense channeling.
No matter where.
I'm assuming when they got to the other side of the gateway, I don't think I'm pretty sure there were a couple people channeling.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they know about this ability, so they're not really trying to hide themselves at all. So
you just can't escape it.
Yeah, they just do their thing, and they're like, oh, okay. And it's almost like maybe, I guess, the Gholam has this ability. Maybe he has a residue reading ability. I don't know. Well, he could definitely sense the one power and where it's coming from.
It seems that he doesn't have the residue reading ability because Aviendha thinks that her unweaving would have stopped that. So it's definitely like his own thing. But it just shows that basically, like, the Gholam is one of the biggest of bads, right? Even though it's not intelligent, the Gholam is like an unstoppable force. And it's not like this. It always knows where you're going. Once it's after you, it will not stop. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be. The one power just melts off it. Physical attacks do nothing to it. It doesn't understand fear. It's literally just this unstoppable force.
Which is Terminator.
Exactly. And that's the thing that he's emphasizing here. That even with all of Aviendha's precautions, even with this cool teleportation magic that they have now, the Gholam knows. And it implies someone's going to have to destroy this thing. Because if they don't, it's going to end up killing us all.
So, into the next chapter, a pleasant ride. Yeah, right.
I've read these books. There's no pleasant ride.
It's an Elayne chapter. So, they're traveling to the farm. Because they didn't put the gateway right in the farm. They're a little bit outside it, and they have to travel for whiles. And basically this chapter is a bunch of bickering between the three factions. And they want to make sure that the bargain, at least that was presented, is followed to the T. Both sides are kind of talking about this bargain. And they kind of, like, they don't follow the letter of the bargain. They kind of just kind of...
Everyone wants to manipulate it.
Yeah, everyone wants to manipulate and be on the upper hand of this bargain.
Agreed.
So, I think one part of the bargain was that the Aes Sedai were to teach the Sea Folk some of the stuff that the Aes Sedai had been holding back to, Aes Sedai stuff, Aes Sedai tricks, Aes Sedai weaves. There was the kin are still very
subservient.
They're subservient, but they're also apprehensive about the duty revolving around Isbin.
Yeah, but they don't want to trust. They don't know if they can trust the Aes Sedai, do they? The Power Girls. I mean, Supergirls are like, oh, we don't know if we want them to have it. So like, they're like, we trust the kin. So we're leaving her with the kin.
Well, they have to trust the kin because I guess the kin are so outside of the loop
that they're not Black Aja.
Yeah, so that they're so outside the loop that any of them being in the Black Aja is pretty slim.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the main motivating factors of handing Isbin over to the kin.
Yeah, some of them might be dark friends, that's possible, but Black Archer is very likely because the tower itself just didn't really understand what the kin was.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Windfinders are there to assist with the Bowl of the Winds. And yeah, this chapter is just a lot of bickering, back and forth manipulations,
So,
and
just
at the
move
end
on.
of it, yeah, at the end of it, I guess Elayne kind of sets up her plan after they're finished, which is
Go
to
be
start to
queen.
go to, yeah, basically, because that's directly kind of right after the whole Bowl of the Wind situation. They kind of transition to complete that task, but um, let's go into the next chapter.
I don't think this
That,
is a big one either, is it?
no, it's called A Quiet Place, so this is the arrival at the farm.
Yeah.
And I know upon arrival, they're supposed to arrive kind of hiding who they are, because if a bunch of Aes Sedai just show up at the farm, of course, that's going to cause a bunch of chaos.
Yeah.
That exactly happens when they show up. So they fail to hide themselves well. The kin there at the farm are tipped off, and it is just complete chaos. They just scatter in every direction because they see
This
that,
is like,
oh,
they're coming to take us back, right? We're going to get punished because they all think of themselves as runaways.
yeah, exactly. And then, the slip up was one of the Aes Sedai didn't cover her face like well enough, and they saw the agelessness, and they were like, "Oh no, let's get out of here!" So they make a mad scatter in every direction, and well, who was it? Nynaeve or Elayne is just kind of face palming at this whole situation.
Whatever.
But they find this one woman named Elise, who's like the most unflappable person that I could think of in this
Yeah.
area. She's just not panicked at all. So they find her, and instead of just running off like a crazy person, she
Well,
goes.
they're
Well,
not
she.
crazy for running away, okay?
Well, no, she's more upset, so she goes right to Rianne, which is one of the elder like kin people, and she just kind of berates her as a traitor for bringing Aes Sedai here. But Rianne explains, hey, it's not what you think. They're
Yeah.
actually wanting us to become part of the tower, and they're going to allow us to try to be Aes Sedai again. Because it seems like secretly all the kin want to become Aes Sedai. It seems like they're not there because they hate the sisters. They all have some sort of reverence.
Yeah.
They're they are fearful of the sisters, but they also revere them. So it's kind of like this weird relationship that they have with these sisters. So Rianne kind of breaks down that, hey, the tower has always known about us. Apparently, this is not the time to scatter and about and do crazy stuff. So they have the warders round up the scattered kin and have them rounded back up and talked to. So because I guess the kin had kind of released Ispan over to Adelius and Viandine.
Yeah. As a duo, the sisters.
So, and since now they're at the farm, originally, Aviendha wanted to interrogate. Aviendha and Elayne wanted to interrogate them. Adelius and Viandine basically told them, hey, this is not something someone who's inexperienced can do. Let us handle it.
Yeah.
And they go and do their thing. And of course, Ispan is claiming to be on Elida's orders and saying that they're going to be in a huge poo-poo if they do anything bad to her. And Adelius does talk about some of the the rules around interrogating Aes Sedai. One of the rules is there's no bloodshed. Blood cannot be spilled. And then after that happens, Aviendha is kind of, what do you call it? She is down on herself because it seems like if she was actually going to go ahead and go through with it, she doesn't know if she would have been able to keep Ispan alive because she doesn't know what she would be doing. In Aiel society, interrogations are only done by the most veteran of Algaida Siswai, right?
Yeah.
The most veteran warriors are the only ones that are allowed to do it, and we're talking about 20 plus years of experience.
And not with the power, you know what I mean?
No, it's like old-fashioned it's old-fashioned torture. So eventually all the kin are rounded up and everything gets settled down. They go looking through more of the storeroom stuff for Ter'angreal and stuff, and they find some to use.
They find Ter'angreal, right?
Yeah, they find some to use for their endeavor. I know there's like this, I'm trying to explain. It looks, I guess what it's described as is like a bracelet.
Yeah.
Connected to a bunch of rings, so it's almost like a super bare bones affinity gauntlet.
I think of it literally as there's a bracelet here, chain running to each ring, and then a ring on each finger. So once you put the rings on, you fasten the bracelet, and then you can't take the rings off because the chains hook into the bracelet.
Yeah. I guess I just got a message from Andrew. Let me see if he wants to come in.
He's only an hour and a half late. It's fine.
Yeah, it's late. I don't care. You can come in at any time.
Of course. And it's pretty much on time. You know, it's Andrew time.
But yeah, let me make sure I can add him in the room if he's trying to get in here. Because I don't know if he sent a message here. Because the only thing about this new chat thing that I don't like is I gotta approve people to come in. Before I just give them the link, and bam, they could join at their leisure. It's like, maybe there's a setting I can set so I don't have to do this, but yeah, he hasn't tried.
He just said he guessed he might have to skip it.
Oh, okay.
That's what he said in the chat.
Well, he didn't give a reason. I don't know if he's saying he's going to skip it because he's super late, or if he skips it because he has something to do. If he's super late, I don't mind. He can come in at any time.
Of course not. I'm sure he knows that. And you've said in the chat that he can join anytime. So if he clicks, if he mentions it on the chat, I'll keep my eye on it, doesn't he?
Okay, so, yeah, we got the poor man's Infinity Gauntlet.
But the thing that's cool is there's a couple of Ter'angreal because there's another one, isn't there? The other one they say is like the weakest, but it's powerful enough that Elayne describes it as doubling, not just increasing, doubling the amount that she can hold. And that's just in Ter'angreal, not a Ter'angreal. And that's the weakest of the ones they find. So that just shows how impactful an Ter'angreal is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they find Ter'angreal. Another one is like a woman that's sitting down.
Dressed in her hair.
Yeah, their hair is like covering her body.
That's the one that Elayne ends up using most of the time.
Okay, and
the one gets given to an Nynaeve, I believe, and she doesn't take it off.
Okay, and then because I think Nynaeve went with Lan, right? She's always sticking around with them.
So and she's, not only because she's in love, she's also using it as a way to get out of her jobs.
Yeah, it seems like it. So she had been off with Lan trying to round up the fleeing kin. So she finally returns, and then they start to do the whole Bowl of the Winds sequence. So I thought this was a pretty interesting sequence. So we're in chapter 5, the breaking storm. So we go to Elayne's point of view, and they split everybody up, and they try to get all of the strongest chandlers together to climb to the highest hill near the farm. So the next thing they do is they climb up this hill, and what do? They basically discuss different things surrounding what they have to do. So the Windfinders don't know a whole lot of things about what Aes Sedai could do, and the Aes Sedai don't know a whole lot of things about what the Windfinders can do. So they're butting heads. Mainly, one of the things they butt heads about is the circle and creating a circle.
Because it's such a valuable piece of information. And who's going to be in charge?
Yeah, and what the Windfinders didn't know is that a circle cannot be forced.
Yeah.
Everyone who is a part of the circle must be a willing participant. So the Windfinders were concerned that once they were involved in the circle, they would lose autonomy and be completely controlled. But that's not the case. They can leave. They have to be willing. They have to surrender to the circle, and they have to be a willing participant. So they demonstrate how to link, and before this part happens, there's a little bit of a small conversation between Aviendha and Elayne, and I forgot to mention this because when we see Aviendha making a gateway, it's really hard for her to do, and it's not because she's weak.
Yeah, she has.
Or she lacks power. So we get the explanation of why she was having so much trouble. And of course, this is something that she didn't discuss because she's Aiel, and it's very shaming to her. So she talks to Elayne and explains that the reason that she did not, that she is having trouble with the gateway is that I guess the sex igloo, is that basically why? The igloo sex chapter?
Basically, she's the first person who discovered traveling in
true.
this world. She did traveling spontaneously, and it was followed by her going to somewhere completely random, and then cheating, in her view, from the guy she was supposed to keep safe for her mate, and ended up bedding him. So I think the shame and the jiatoh that were involved with that obviously made her feel guilty about the entire weave. So because of that, she was holding herself back, almost like creating a block for herself.
Yeah, so she discusses that with Elayne, and she also talks about her. It's basically about how she's, I guess, her lack of self-confidence when it comes to that, and her wanting to question Hispan. But Elayne also admits that she doesn't think she'd have been able to do the interrogation either, which puts Aviendha at some ease. So, getting back to the Bowl of the Winds. We have a little bit of bickering going on, but eventually they do get the job done. We do see them start to channel and link. We see the bowl kind of show different pictures on it as they're using it, right?
Absolutely.
And
it responds to the weaves.
So also the one who's leading the circle is one of the Windfinders, who is considered an expert at controlling the weather. Elayne is in awe when she sees her control of the weather, and she's like, well, never be able to do this in a million years. That's
Yeah.
kind of what she comes to. And I'm glad that they kind of at least saw something good about the Windfinders, because it just seems like everything is just negative, negative, negative. And then they see this and they're like, oh, okay, maybe they are worth some respect, you know. They have something that they can do that we cannot.
Yeah, and again, it's made quite clear that she's not stronger than them. Like, she isn't on the level of Elayne or Aviendha or an Eve. But again, it's that point of, actually, though the power is about how much power you have, a lot of it's about skill as well. And this is one of the things that the Tower Race that I've been saying all along. That, like, practice, don't rush things. But obviously this era, as you said, Dusty, it's been a time when they've had to rush things. And so they've, and like with the men, like specifically, he's like, there's no time for you to learn safely. I'm going to force all of you to learn super, super quick. But one of the things we see is that, like, these Windfinders have been doing nothing but Windweaves for their entire lives, and so they're pretty freaking great at it.
Yeah, so eventually a large column of the power just kind of bursts out of the bowl into the sky, and there's kind of like a spider web-ish type of lattice that forms, and we see that kind of spread in all directions. One of the things they notice as well is that they can sense that the bowl is drawing in saidin.
Oh yeah, the male part of the power.
Yeah, and they're kind of like, what, they all sense it, and they're kind of bewildered by it. And once everything is done, the source is released quite abruptly, and it seems like everyone just kind of falls on their butt in exhaustion.
Because the Windfinders, like, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's like, I'm super powerful when I've got all of your power, but she doesn't understand circles. So she's just like, cut him off. Like, oh! You just think, yeah, you're not good at this.
So after they finish,
is this the first time we've seen them really use a circle, the main girls?
You know what? I wouldn't say that. We've seen a circle before, because I know.
But I mean with like Elayne and Aviendha.
It's a good question. I don't think they've been linked.
It's
before.
very rare, and in the early books, it's almost non-existent. The first time I remember it happening is when there's like a bubble of evil in the camp inside, and they step outside and they're just all forming circles right in the center. But
oh yeah, the first circle I think is when they're healing Matt.
Yeah, that's the first time ever. But the Supergirls aren't in it because they're like novices at the time.
Yeah, I don't remember if the Supergirls linked during the attack on Saladar. I don't remember them linking.
It's interesting to me because it's like it's something that you would think would happen all the time, but it really doesn't.
Well, it sounds like they have practice off page.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I don't remember them explicitly joining a circle.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, this might be the first circle scene for them. I'm not sure though.
Fair enough. I'm not.
So, right immediately after they finish, they sense a large amount of saidar far away. But this is towards Ebadar. And they see lightning in the sky in that direction. We know what this means, but their first suspicion is that Forsaken have attacked the city. And then, while they're looking, they see in the sky one of the kin screams, shadowspawn. And there's just this flying creature, and they're throwing fireballs at it. They hit it, they spot another. And Elayne and Nynaeve recognize it. It's not shadowspawn, it's a Raken, right?
Yeah.
And so they realize now that It's not the Forsaken attacking Abadar, it's the Seanchan. So, of course, this is horrible, and Elayne orders everybody to get the
Hell
hell out of Dodge.
Because they basically just said, loads of channelers here. Absolutely senseless. If you want to
the only reason the Racken are there now is because they sensed all of that they did with the Bowl of the Winds.
Yeah. I'm like, ooh, come by your
Racken. The Racken is just a scouting party.
Yeah.
Like the Soul Doms haven't shown up yet. So let's go ahead and get into the next chapter.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is where things get a little hairy. This is chapter 6. It's called Threads. So we got Elayne again. So all of the people involved in using the bowl are super tuckered out.
Yeah, they're right.
And they need recovery time because somebody has to make a gateway, and the gateways are only made by the strongest channelers there, and they were all involved in the Bowl of the Winds. So what happens is they try to get all these kin gathered up and ready to go. And it's not only kin that are at this farm. It seems like there's a couple non-channelers as well. And there's well, not a couple. It's just one woman. It's not a channeler. And so Elise is taking charge of gathering people up. She's making rules for what they can take with them. And the only one who feels that they're up to making a gateway right now is Elayne. So the location she chooses is a manor house outside of Camelin that I guess is owned by her family at least.
Yeah,
or at least
she's trying to get back to Camelin. That's what she said before.
Yeah, so her instructions is for everyone to go to the manor house, and she gives them kind of like a code word so that when they meet the lord of the house, they know that they were sent by Elayne. Everyone's like, why is Elayne staying back? And right as everyone's going through, Brigida and Aviendha are still there with Elayne.
Yeah.
And Elayne starts to take the weave apart.
Oh, Elayne.
Yeah. So as this is happening,
you said you probably don't need to do things.
Yeah, of course. I forgot who tells Elayne, but she's like, "Hey, just drop what you're doing and let's go." And Aviendha's like, "No, when she started, she has to finish. You can't just drop what you're doing.
You can't half unweave it."
Yeah, you gotta finish it to completion. So, we do get some information. Yeah, so she holds what she's doing until everyone gets through, and then she starts to unweave, except at that time we get the arrival of some infantry. Plus, so they start firing bolts, crossbow bolts through. Brigida gets hit. Aviendha gets hit. So they're in trouble. So I think they have some horses. Aviendha starts going Dragon Ball Z style and just starts shooting a bunch of fireballs through the gateway, hitting and random people. Brigida's, of course, messing things up with her extremely accurate bow shots. They realize that they're completely outnumbered and they can't stay there. She doesn't have enough time. So Brigida puts Elayne on horseback, and they need to get over the ridge.
Yep.
We do see here is that apparently you do not need to see the weave in order to hold it.
Well, she puts her on the horse facing it, doesn't she?
So facing
she
it.
can keep doing it, like she's sitting on the horse backwards. So she's like, keep unweaving as I go. And like they're hoping they'll be far enough away before, even if it does go wrong, that they won't die. Which turns out to be wise.
Yeah, and Elayne is right at this point, things are so dire, she's so exhausted that at best, the only thing she could do is hold on to the weaves that she's already unraveled.
Yeah.
And what was explained by Aviendha earlier, the longer she takes, the more slippery these weaves get.
Yeah.
So as they're fleeing the area where the gateway is, and trying to keep the Seanchan at bay, right before they reach the crest of the hill, one of the Soldam has a Damane block her because she's so exhausted. Under normal circumstance,
they wouldn't have
the
been able
shield,
to because she's so strong.
Yeah, the shield wouldn't have worked, but she has expended a lot of her energy, and she's not able to block this shielding. So she gets shielded.
And she wasn't finished.
No. So we see what is described as a huge flash of light and a deafening sound. And the aftermath is insane. I know.
On the other side too.
They're on the other side of the hill. They're all battered. Brigida is explained as having just like one shoe, like half of her clothes ripped off, bloody, like completely covered with blood. The others are much in the same state. Lioness, the horse, like Elayne's beloved horse, did not survive. Its back was broken from the blast.
And even on the other side, right, there's like a Arakan scout, and like the impact just like wipes out the farm, and they think it was on purpose. They're like, they've got like a super, like, mini nuke that they can use.
Yeah. So I know as they recover, Elayne makes the suggestion, saying, "Wow, look at this weapon we discovered." However, Aviendha.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
she said
I didn't realize that.
However, Aviendha was like, "Oh no, you can't predict the effect of it unraveling. It could be something as simple as a small pop of flash, or stealing everybody in 100 yards, or this, that, and the other." So she's trying to tell her that it's completely unpredictable what the effect might be if you drop an unraveled weave.
Yeah.
This is also during this whole exchange, from when she starts to unravel to the weave till now, Aviendha is trying to instill confidence in Elayne in doing the task, and she knows damn well what could happen if Elayne fails, yet she stands there the whole time, and she's not going to abandon her no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's when she explains the mechanics of unweaving, as well as the different effects that could happen if you don't do it successfully. And then we figure out, oh, she's also failed. Aviendha has also failed at this task, but she's had hundreds and hundreds of hours of practice. I think she says like her first 50, she was not able to unravel successfully. But the consequences from those first 50 were very small. I think she...
varied as well.
It was small but varied. But we got to remember how powerful you have to be as a sister to create a gateway.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of power that goes into it.
Yeah, she was probably only unraveling smaller weaves, definitely.
Yeah, very small weaves that had varied and small effects, I think.
Yeah. Not gateway weaves, basically.
Yeah, nothing of that power. So if something happened, it would be like a bright flash, a fizzle, a pop.
And maybe she got chucked across a room once or twice, but...
Yeah, nothing as devastating as this, what happened. So it's described Basically, yeah, so everything around it was flattened. All the trees were knocked down and black.
The farm's gone.
Yeah, completely. There's no evidence that a farm had ever been there. It's complete destruction.
Yeah.
And this is like, wow, this is basically the nuke of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, or at least that's what the Seanchan think.
Oh yeah, for certain.
They think they did it on purpose. Like, we found their base, we were just about to overwhelm them, and then it was actually a trap. They lured us in and then blowing us up.
Yes, and that gets us into the next point of view. Right, so this is...
It's very short, it's just that basically.
Well, before we get to the next point of view, there's one important thing that happens with Elayne and Aviendha, is that they want to become First Sisters.
First Sisters. And again, when you said, like, it looked like she might die, and yet Aviendha didn't even blink. She wasn't going anywhere. And again, that maybe shows that Aviendha's like, yeah, I'm ready to die for you. We are close enough to be First Sisters.
Yeah, so that's when Elayne was like, yes, we're going to become First Sisters, and the first wise one we see, we're going to do like the ceremony that entails that. Alright, so next point of view, it's from Chulain, which is a Rockin' Rider, I guess.
Pilot, yeah.
Rockin' pilot, Rockin' Rider. So I guess it's a paired pilot thing. So there's
they're
two
almost
pilots.
they're always in twos, I believe.
Yeah, so there's two of them that are piloting this Rockin', and while they're talking about what they're gonna do after they retire.
Oh, never do that in the book. Never talk about what you're gonna do when you retire. You're doomed if you do.
Well, at least one of them is doomed. So what happens is this is a concurrent event with the Gateway collapse.
Yes.
And it took me a while to figure out what was going on here. And I was like, oh. I was like, oh, okay. I get it. I see what's going on. So they get hit with a large blast of force, and the Rockin' is not able to recover quite quickly. And while she's saying her prayers before they hit the ground, the Rockin' recovers. She goes back to speak to her co-pilot. Co-pilot's gone.
Yep. Straps blew off or came loose.
Yes, so... And we gotta remember that she's on the other side of the gateway.
Yeah.
And apparently on the other side of the gateway, there were a ton of infantry. They're called the Fists of Heaven, which is a elite unit, because they get compared to the Death Watch guards. And they get compared to them as hey, these are elite units. So they get completely wiped out. She sees no remnants of them at all. She believes that this whole thing was a trap to gather them together, and that they have to be very wary now that they possess these types of weapons of war.
Like I said.
It was a happy accident, but yeah, they're convinced that, okay, these, what do they call them? What do they call Unchained Aes Sedai, the Seanchan?
Yeah.
Like something Damane, but
yeah.
Roth Damane or something like that.
I can't remember the word, but yes, I know what you mean.
Yeah, there's a word for Unchained Aes
Damane
Sedai.
is chained, and
so...
I'll figure it out. Go on, carry on. But yes, I know what you mean.
So, yeah, they're now, okay, we got to be careful. They have these weapons now. We can't just go charging in. And I believe there were also some Sul'dam down there that had been taken out as well. So they lost a pretty big chunk of force there. So next chapter, it's going to be chapter 7. So we just got a couple more. And then we're going back to Perrin. So this is another interesting thing. So Perrin is outside of Gildam. Marath Damane. There you go. Unchained Aes Sedai.
Yeah, it's those who must be leashed, isn't it? There's the leashed ones, and then the ones who should be leashed. That everyone is either leashed or should be.
Yes. So, Perrin and a group, they're a little bit outside of Gildan, in a town called Bethel. His task is to meet with the queen, Aviendha. We did see Aviendha in an earlier book. I think it was a book, the book with the frickin' circus. That book. With Val and Luca. I forget which book that is, but and earlier she had
it's coming back, isn't it? It's coming back.
Yeah, so she is... Well, anyway, Perrin wants to meet with her.
Yep.
To see what they can do about the prophet.
Yeah.
And right now, in the beginning of this chapter, they're kind of discussing who should be the one to make contact.
Yeah.
And the one who decides, like Faile wants to be the one to make contact.
And of course, so does Verin, because they're meant to be rivals. Even though it's quite clear from day one that he's going to be with Faile. I don't know why they continue it for so long.
Yeah, so Perrin decides to send Elayne. His main reason is because he doesn't want to put Faile in danger.
Absolutely. And also, she is like a political genius.
Elayne?
Yeah. Like she's kept her tiny country independent of Tyr for all these years. She's very good at that. Like, she's super good at it. She's better than Faile at it, but don't tell that to your wife, you know what I mean?
Yes. So we do get actually a, what do you want to call it? Because of course there's a timeline in these books.
Yep.
So right now, according to what's going on, this is actually a few days after the use of the bowls, because it's noted that several days ago some of our channelers felt a huge use of the one power.
Yep.
So this is a few days after that, and they also saw the power streaking across the sky.
Yep.
So none of them know what it means. So they're like, what the hell is going on? But anyway, Perrin decides to send Elayne and with her advisor, which was an Aes Sedai advisor. And it angers everybody who actually wanted to go, but you know, it is what it is.
Yep.
So, as they're traveling, Aram sees that there's trouble at a farm. One of the Aes Sedai is like, I don't know which, but she says, yeah, just steer wide of that. And of course, Perrin has a very strong moral center, and he's not going to let like innocent people get killed. So she also tells them that, hey, if you cause trouble with these people, that your chances of making good with the prophet are going to go down the drain. So what Perrin wants to do is he just wants to scare them away. He doesn't really want to kill anybody.
Yeah, and that's very true to Perrin's character.
So he tells the Aes Sedai traveling with him, hey, can you scare them for me? And they're like, well, we could try. So Perrin grabs a couple warders and he jets and charges them. Only 4 people. Faile ends up joining.
Of course, because she never listens.
Yeah, instead of saying, hey, what are you doing? Get out of here, he tells her, watch my back.
which is what she wants him to say, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
he's learning.
As they're charging this farm, Perrin's thinking, it's like, when's the diversion? Where's this thing coming? And right when they meet with the farm. Right when they get there, thunder starts to strike,
Yeah.
and the rabble starts to disperse.
They
So
save
as he approaches the farm. The farm's pretty messed up, but he finds a few people. The first person he finds, as soon as the rabbles disperse, runs away. He goes after her. And he says, hey, we're here to help. We're not here to harm you. And he eventually gains some sort of trust. The person is described as having red gold hair.
And I'm sure there's only one family in this particular continuity that has that kind of hair.
Yeah, as soon as I heard that, I was like, oh, I know who this is. So, yes, it's Morgase. She is going around as an assumed name. I think Magdan.
Yeah, her mum's
is
name. It's her mum's name.
Oh, that's what. Oh, okay. I didn't even know.
But it's not a big deal. But if you look into the lore, it is the same name that her mum had.
Yeah. So, Perrin offers to escort them back to the camp. Says, hey, you can be safe at our camp. It's not safe out here. While they're walking to the camp, he noticed two of the men look very familiar, and he recognizes Glam and Basil Gill.
Basil Gill.
Lamgwin was like the bouncer, and Lamgwin was the owner of the inn.
Basil Gill's the owner.
Queen, the Queen's Blessing. So this is basically a character from the very first book.
Yeah, but we also know as the readers that they were with Morgase when she was in her gentle captivity with Ter'angreal and her eventual escape from Whitecloaks.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so going into the next chapter, A Simple Countrywoman.
Yeah.
Yeah, the title's describing Morgase's assumed identity.
Yeah, and I love like Linny as well.
Oh, like, Linny is like the most entertaining of the group.
She's amazing. I love everything about it. Like she has some great quotes in the series. I think my favorite one is if she tells a story, she's like, "There's this old story," and like, "You just made it up," and she's like, "If I made it up, it is old because I." I love that. I love that. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Oh yeah, so they get back to the camp, and we can just kind of talk about the contents and the inhabitants. We got a bunch of winged guards. We got wise ones, some maidens. So he has a complement of different troops at his disposal at the camp.
Got to balance them all, make sure they don't all kick off.
Yeah, so it's also described that Talonvor, Balwer, and Brienne are part of Magdan's group. Yeah, Balwer.
He is one of my favorite characters. Like as the minor characters, Balwer, what a guy! What a
the guy that's always right, apparently. But
never makes any mistakes, but no one realizes how important he is ever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry.
So we got some Two Rivers men under his command, and the two Ashaman assigned to him are Niald and Grady, who are kind of like exact opposites.
Yeah, but they're cool.
Yeah, Grady is like a grizzly old dude, right? And Niald is like a super flashy, like flamboyant and extravagant person. So you kind of have like a bit of contrast between these two Ashamen. When Magdan is kind of strolling through the camp, she gets upset because of the banners, right?
Yep.
And they have a discussion.
Because they are technically from Andor, remember?
Mm-hmm. And Perrin makes it known. He tells her, hey, we were having struggles down in the Two Rivers.
What did Andor do?
Yeah, and we did it ourselves. Like, we got attacked. Well, he doesn't say this. I'm just saying they were attacked by Trollocs, and the only people that came to their aid were other Two Rivers folk.
Correct.
So, and Andor hasn't really been a presence for them ever.
Nope. They don't even see the taxman.
No, the taxman doesn't come down that far. So, I think what happens is, after an outburst, Leanie's like, reminds her, hey, you're a simple countrywoman. You don't want to get this dude angry. He saved us.
Yeah.
Which is where the title of this chapter comes from. Well,
Just
of course,
reminding her who she is.
Yeah, because her queenliness is coming out. She's getting upset. Like, if she was fully in her role as a queen, which she kind of isn't anymore because she kind of secretly abdicated the throne.
She said the words.
But Leanie knows she abdicated the throne.
And she knows. You see, that's the thing about Morgase, right? Is Morgase is crafty. She plays the game for houses, but if she said it, she meant it. And the reason she did it is because she thought she might be compelled to do something that would be dishonorable to her country, and she wanted to make sure she didn't have the power to do that. And I think it really shows that Morgase, even though she has her own agenda, she is at base one of the most honorable and good people in power.
So
she's a patriot. That's the word I'm looking for. She's a true patriot.
So eventually, Perrin does talk to Basil Gill, and he kind of wants to know what their situation was, how they get to what happens. And of course, Leanie is like right over his shoulder, making sure he doesn't say the wrong thing.
Yep.
She's like, give it to them straight and as few words as you can. So he gives him the story that there was like some great deal, like trading deal that he found in one of the towns. I forgot what's the name of the town, but
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They reached the town, there was trouble, and there's been basically trouble ever since. And during one of the towns, that's when Magdin accompanied them because they needed to flee wherever they were. So it gives like this kind of simple explanation. And Perrin is kind of disappointed because he knows when people are lying. He could smell it.
Yep.
And he's like, what is Basil Gill doing lying to me? You know. But he kind of like, must be something, nothing major or evil, but maybe they're just trying to hide something personal or something like that. But anyway, Leanie breaks in, and she's like, oh, I need to tell you the whole truth. Like, Basil Gill is just like, what? You just told me to stick to the script, and now you're going to go ahead and spill your guts about everything.
Because she can. She's Leanie, man.
So what ended up happening is she tells Perrin, when you get the chance, you need to make sure you marry Magdin and Talonvor. So this is kind of like a relief to Basil Gill.
She thought she was going to share someone else.
Yeah, so, because of course, you know, Basil Gill has extreme loyalty to the Queen. Like,
true patriot.
Yeah, since book 1, he has been super loyal to Morgase and the crown. So when he heard Leanie say that, he was like, must be like, how dare she put her in danger? But yeah, she basically just says, she asks Perrin that as soon as you can, get these two married because they deserve each other. And I know there's a couple times where Perrin is kind of overhearing Morgase talk about Talonvor, and Perrin's like, young Talonvor? He's only like 5 years younger than Morgase.
But she sees herself as so much older, doesn't she?
Yeah. Hey, she might be, because she is slowed a little bit, right? By the one power.
Point made.
It's not it's a heavy degree, but she is a little slowed, right?
Agreed.
So eventually, Perrin talks to. Oh no. One thing that Perrin finds out is that the Whitecloaks had attacked Amador or whatever. And this is very startling because, of course, Perrin and the Whitecloaks are like one of the things that don't mix. Yeah. And he knows that they're out for blood for Perrin.
Yeah, because of what they think he did. And what he did do as well.
Yeah, so he finds this bit of startling news, and he's a bit unsettled about knowing that the Seanchan is nearby, because he knows he knows how much of a problem Seanchan can be.
Yeah.
He was there when the horn was blown.
That's all me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is this where he talks to Balwer? No, Balwer's the next chapter.
So this is just Morgase becomes the servant.
Faile
is suspicious, and like Talonvor doesn't like things. And lineage stirs. That's what this is. And
yeah, you got all those characters down packed pretty much. But we do get to Faile's point of view eventually. Yeah. Once Perrin does eventually meet up with Faile, and they have a discussion, and Faile agrees to bring them into her service.
Yeah. But Faile's craftier than Perrin. She realizes she doesn't know everything, but she knows something's going on a level that Perrin doesn't get yet. He's too trusting.
Yes, he's very, very trusting. So we go into Faile's point of view, and we find out that she has like some wannabe Aiel like followers.
Oh, these guys. They're just...
Yeah, so she has, I think it's about 20 of them, right?
Yeah.
And they're
trying to
led...
make their own, like, version of like, you know, like there's the maidens, what do they call them? Not houses, but... I've forgotten the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Societies.
Like, societies. Trying to make a warrior society. You're just like... Oh, don't.
And they even try to do the haircuts and everything. Yeah, like a bastardized version of Giotto.
And every time the Aiel cringe, even though I don't fully understand Giotto, I feel like I'm cringing with them. You know, like it's like when someone goes, when someone's not from your area, and then they try and do your accent to fit in, and you're just like, oh, please stop. Just speak like you do. That's painful to hear you trying to do a North accent. Anyway, that kind of thing.
So yeah, we learn about her crew, and then after that, we get a quick Morgase POV, and Talonvor is kind of apprehensive about Morgase agreeing to be a servant to Faile.
He doesn't think she should be the servant to anyone, does she? Because he's like, you're the queen. She's like,
yeah.
Not the queen right now.
And we got to remember too that there was a discussion where Perrin, I don't know if he was talking directly to Morgase, but Perrin did say that Rand was trying to put Elayne on the lion throne.
Yeah. No one likes that, not even Elayne.
So because of that, that's one of the reasons Morgase wants to stick around to find out what these plans are.
Yeah.
And I think we do get a little bit of a scene where Talonvar kind of gets says some romantic things to Morgase.
Yeah, acts inappropriately.
Yeah, he acts inappropriately.
Station.
However, since she has abdicated the throne, it's no longer really inappropriate.
Well, she's still a noblewoman, but yeah, absolutely. And like the thing is, she thinks about things like her age, but her age isn't as much older than him as she thinks it is. And it's what's his name? Jordan is playing here with the idea of relative station affecting the way we perceive people, and that actually it's all just perception, and you can fall in love with whoever you please.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go on the next chapter. Last chapter we're discussing for today is Tangles.
Yeah. This is the Balwer chapter, isn't it?
It is, but before we get to the Balwer chapter, something I didn't mention last chapter is that Perrin has been always apprehensive about, throughout these two chapters, we do see him not liking that he's in this position of power and that everybody is calling him Lord, and he's being pampered. Like, he can't do the simple things that he used to like to do, just like tend to his own horse or do things of that nature, and he has like a person doing everything for him, and he's hating it.
And that was the way right back in the Two Rivers sequences we had in previous books, right? Like when they wanted to raise the wolf head banner, and when Faile was trying to get him to accept that he was going to be like the Lord of the Two Rivers, he's like, no, these are just my neighbors. I'm just like the smith here, and like Master Luan is like bowing to him and stuff. He's like, hey, what you doing? It's like, you like practically raised me, man. And very, very uncomfortable with that, and has been throughout.
Yeah. So, one of the things he's been continually doing is making sure that they're taking these banners down.
Yeah.
At the beginning of this chapter, though, he's kind of subscribed and acquiesced to those feelings about taking these down. There's a couple reasons. Another reason is he had a conversation with Faile in the last chapter that I forgot to mention about their purpose. Yeah. And this is one of the things I wanted to talk about with you.
Go on.
The whole show of Rand and Perrin falling out.
Yeah.
Which was a planned display.
Yes.
And I've read these books before, but I still don't remember why he needed to do that.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is that Rand wants to make it look like he and Perrin are out so that Perrin doesn't get killed. Because he's like, if I distance him, but also it's mainly so that he could use Perrin to do what Rand could not. Because Rand's first intention was, I want to go home. I want to go back to the Two Rivers and check on all my people. But if he'd done that, the Shadow would have been like, oh, so these are your people. Right, we're definitely going to kill all of them. And so basically he's secretly sending Perrin back, but because he's made everyone think that him and Perrin are at outs, no one will assume it's a secret mission from him, so therefore they'll ignore the Two Rivers and focus on Rand, so he gets to send someone home to protect his family, while also not, like, but also send someone he cares about, but also not drawing attention to them, because the Shadow will think that that's not what Rand actually wants, that Rand's focus is elsewhere.
Yes, so... Okay, you spelled it out a bit better for me. I couldn't figure out why. Because I know he mentions in this chapter, well, at least in the last chapter, that it was a show.
Yeah, and remember, like, if you think about Rand, I mean, like, what is Rand? Teenager? 19, maybe? 20? And, like, why doesn't he go home? It just doesn't make sense, right? Like, at the beginning, it's obvious you can, but, like, once he used the dragon... and he's like taken over Andor and stuff, why not go home? And that's clearly the point, is that he doesn't want the Shadow to ever really register that he's from Two Rivers, that he loves Two Rivers, that Two Rivers are his people. and so he uses Perrin as his southpaw, as his cat's paw.
Okay. Another thing that Faile mentioned is that we know that Perrin has some ulterior motives, and in order to keep that, and this is when we're talking about when he goes and meets with Aviendha, right? She says to him, because what he needs to do is get rid of the prophet, or at least talk to him, or whatever.
Yeah.
And he needs a distraction, and Faile's suggestion is that, hey, these lands here, some of them, at least part of them, were part of Manetheren. So if you raise these banners when you meet with Aviendha, she's going to be focused on that.
Yeah, like
and you can use that as a misdirection. And that's why Perrin now is like, everyone, because he stepped out and saw the banners when he woke up, and everybody is like eyeing Perrin to see when he's going to say, take those down.
Because that's what he said before.
Yeah, so he doesn't do it.
No.
And that's because he needs to use that as a distraction when he talks to Aviendha.
And don't you think, Dusty, he is getting slowly more used to it?
He is, because
of Faile.
One, because of Faile, she's very much stoking this responsibility into him.
Yeah, and that, you use a really important word there. That she doesn't portray being a noble as taking it easy and feeding off your lessers. She portrays it as, this is your opportunity to serve them. By being their leader, you're going to help them. And I think, because Matt sees nobles very differently, doesn't he? That's one of the reasons Matt hates the idea of being a noble, is that he doesn't see them as serving anybody. He sees them as self-serving. And the reason that Perrin adapts is because she shows them that to be a noble does not mean that you can't be true to who you are. You just, instead of serving one person by making them a sword, you're going to serve a whole nation by being a great leader.
Yes. And another thing is, too, is that Faile's not slacking off. She has a lot of duties.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why she hires at least Basil Gill, is she needs to get him to procure supplies, and she sends him to get some tabak. I know specifically for Perrin, but Perrin's like, we got tabak, and Basil, well, it's not the kind that you like, it's the other kind, and we're giving that to the rest of the men. And we know that as the wife, Faile is doing all this domestic management, but the domestic management encompasses everybody. It's
and
not
spies.
Her own house. Yeah. So she's doing a lot of work herself, and she wants to make sure that Perrin is also taking his responsibilities to the people that he's responsible for protecting.
Yeah, I love it when she's like, spying is a woman's work, and like, you go do the, you go be like leader stuff, but it's like, leave the intelligence to me. It's like so clearly in Saldia, that's the way it works. It's a husband and wife team, and there's clear delineation of responsibility.
So after he does not order the takedown of the banners, he's approached by Balwer.
Yep.
I know one of the things that Perrin notices is that, hey, I don't really hear this guy's footsteps. He's a little sneaky, man.
Well, considering Perrin isn't hearing it, he's super sneaky, right?
Yeah.
You underestimated his sneakiness.
So Balwer gives the same opportunity that he gave to Pedro Nile. He tells him, I'd like to be your secretary, and also to supply him information. So he's offering the same role that he took as secretary when it was Pedro Nile. So he basically goads him by telling him, hey, I know all this information, and he
Yep.
gives him a bunch of it. He talks about where the prophet might be, and he gives him an accurate assessment. He asks why, and he's like, well, I heard about these inns being bought up, and these inns are only in this town. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. He tells them about the Whitecloaks and
He
who
knows
the
lots.
heads. Yeah, he knows lots about the Whitecloaks. He knows who's the head of this and that. And he basically tells them what they're up to and that he needs to be wary of them. And he gives them a bit more details about what happens with the Seanchan invasion in Amadecia. So Perrin, I think he considers it, and he's like, yeah, it sounds like it might be accurate. We'll have to see. And I think it does pay out later. But yeah, that's Balwer's introduction to Perrin. He wants to be useful. And another thing is I think Balwer has an ulterior motive here. Because I think he was very, very loyal to Pedro Nile. I think he genuinely liked him. And he knows that Luca, not Luca, what's his name?
Yeah. Valda killed him.
Valda and Asanawa plotted. Or he at least thinks they plotted to kill.
Oh, he's Balwer. He knows.
Well, yeah, he knows that they plotted to kill his former boss. So he's definitely going to give Perrin the goods on the two.
Yeah, take those suckers down.
Yeah, he's going to play his own little role to get his vengeance.
Yeah, I'd never bet against Balwer.
Yeah, and of course, Perrin is sniffing him up and everything, and he doesn't sense any
so
deception. Well, you know what we mean.
I do know what you mean. That's
how
like Perrin's emotion scanner.
Yeah, so he's like, yeah, seems to be the genuine article here, but he is a little wary about.
Well, and rightly so, because Balwer is like a lying toe rag, but he's doing it in such a way that is supportive of Perrin's objectives.
Yeah, so the most wary thing that he senses about Balwer is his knowledge of the Whitecloaks.
Yeah.
So he's suspicious that Balwer possibly could be like a Whitecloak spy or something. It's kind of it's entertained, but yeah, that's not really the case. But
well, he's the master of all Whitecloak spies.
Yeah, well, he is a Whitecloak spy master, but
yeah,
he's switching sides here.
It's like saying that, the Amaranth Seat might be an Aes Sedai. Yep, she definitely is. Mm-hmm. She's the boss.
So shortly after, an Aes Sedai approaches Perrin, and she's concerned because she's hearing like wailing and moaning and screaming from the Wise One camp, and she wants Perrin to investigate and see what's going on, because she doesn't think that the Aes Sedai are being treated well.
Because she's not one of the ones who's committed to be a Wise One apprentice.
No, she is a fealty. Anyone who swears fealty to the Dragon Reborn gets out of... Yeah, doesn't have to be an apprentice. All those who oppose go into the apprentice program. They go into the concentration camp.
Well, I'm sure that's not how the Wise Ones see it.
Well, it isn't, because... Okay, we'll get into that. So Perrin goes and investigates, and he's, of course, mad because he, from the very beginning, wanted to make sure that the captured Aes Sedai were not being treated poorly.
Yep. He's all about fairness.
Yeah. So he wants to make sure that they're protected. And he does have that conversation with the Wise Ones.
And they're like, butt out.
Yeah, and at that point, one of the Aes Sedai that was an apprentice says, we don't need your protection. And this is, I guess, uncharacteristic of an apprentice.
Yeah.
But this is when We
Yeah.
at this point we don't know what's going on. If you're a first-time reader, we're like, what are these wise ones doing with all these these Aes Sedai that they captured? So they finally tell us, well, these are our apprentices. And
Yeah.
then you put two and two together. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how Aviendha and Egwene were treated when they were
Yeah.
apprentices. I was like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So we're like, oh, this makes sense now. Yeah, they are apprentices. This is the kind of crap that Aviendha and Egwene had to deal with. So I
And
was like, okay.
one of the key things is when you are a wise one apprentice, they like if again recalling Egwene's experience. A lot of it's about learning humility, and if you are arrogant with them, it results in beatings and mindless work. But if you do exactly what you're told, you humble yourself, and you just do exactly what they ask, and you stick to all their stupid rules, you find that they respect you very quickly. And then when you realize actually you don't need to follow their rules because you're not a kid, they respect that too, but they wait till you realize it for yourself. And it's when you say, actually, I am a wise one. And so the thing is that these Aes Sedai, of course, they're going to find that difficult to do.
Oh, it's going to be very difficult.
And so, yeah, that's why they're getting the beatings and stuff. But it's also, they don't want to admit they've been defeated. So, like, the wise one who says, oh, like, but out Perrin, she's like, their own pride is stopping them progressing. Their own pride is stopping Perrin from helping them. They're like, we will definitely do this ourselves, but the fact that they want to do that is slowing them down. Sorry, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was going to say too, like Perrin's like, well, you could learn something from them, but they rebut, well, yeah, but they could learn something from us.
And that is true, actually.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of the contrasting situation. So you had Egwene, who is basically a baby Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
She hadn't been hardened by Aes Sedai tradition, so she had trouble, but not as much trouble as you would think. It's probably along the same lines as Aviendha.
Yeah.
But they got through it and they did it. It's going to be really hard for the Aes Sedai because they've been steeped in this tradition. They're used to being the cream of the crop and answering to nobody.
Yeah.
So it would be very difficult for them.
And like the wise ones just dispense with lots of Aes Sedai traditions. Like if you walk in a room full of Aes Sedai and you are the strongest person in the room, everyone else just defers to you. As long as you're a sister, as long as you're all sisters, you walk in, and just because you can channel more power by whatever minimum level, you are immediately deferred to. In the wise one, they don't give a crap about how much power you can channel. Your hierarchy is determined based on your honor and like how much you've done for your clan and how you're seen by the other wise ones and the value of your presence. Like, so you can have people like, is it Sorelia, who's like can't channel like barely like at all, and he's like one of the most important wise ones, and like tells people who could like squish her like a bug what to do, and they immediately do it.
Yeah.
Like that. Like imagine an Aes Sedai trying to get her head around that.
Well, we do actually get some insight because I know during the Verin chapter, she talks about trying to discern the wise one hierarchy.
Yeah.
And she's just couldn't figure out. She's like, well, we have young ones telling old ones what to do and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, well, everybody except Sorelia. Nobody tells her what to do.
So she must be top.
Yeah, she must be maybe the leader. But that's kind of what she comes to. She's like, she couldn't figure out any of the lower hierarchy or anything except that nobody orders Sorelia around.
Yeah, fair play.
So, before closing this chapter out, we have an important thing that the wise ones tell Perrin what he must do.
Oh, just with the prophet.
Yeah, so the wise ones tell Perrin that he has to kill Masema.
Oh, don't tell Perrin he has to kill people.
Yeah, so this does not go over well at all.
Yeah.
And then he talks to one of the Aes Sedai that's there in their presence to get backup. He's like, "Oh, you're with me, right?" But the Aes Sedai, she's like, "No, you gotta kill Masema." So she takes the Wise One's side in saying that they must do this. So the Dreamwalkers have seen, and we know the Dreamwalkers are pretty accurate when it comes to what they dream about.
Yeah, but
And
dreams are open to interpretation still.
they are. But they say that if Masema's, because I know Dreamwalkers see possibilities.
They do.
They don't exactly see what's going to happen, but they see possibilities.
Yeah.
And in this case, the possibility they saw is that if Masema was not killed, that thousands would die.
And don't they specifically say he's a danger to the dragon?
Yeah, specifically as well. So there's this conflict because Perrin was tasked to bring Masema into the fold
By the dragon.
by Rand
Yeah.
because he commands Rand's followers, or at least a contingent of them. But the Wise Ones are saying, no, you gotta kill him. So,
Do you obey the crazy guy who used to be your best friend and maybe the future god of this world? Or do you obey the wise ones who are right there and can give you a good old beating? I don't know. But the thing is that Perrin doesn't really want either of these people to control him, and one of the things that Perrin definitely doesn't want to do is be a murderer. It's not in his nature or in his character. If Masema pulls a knife on someone, that's an entirely different matter, but to just kill him as an assassin when Masema thinks they're on the same side, I don't know if Perrin would be physically capable of doing that, even under command.
Yeah, I'd say that definitely of the three, to Verin, Perrin is the most morally centered and morally rigid.
Yeah,
and he does have his lapses, I guess.
But he does, but I think. How do I put this? I don't think Perrin is as rigid. He
thinks he tries to do the best thing at all
absolutely.
costs.
But I think Perrin is not an ends justify the means person in himself. I know that he gets that way in one moment, but
I know which moment you're talking about.
I think Perrin is, for the vast majority of the books, 95% of the books, he's trying to make the right decision in the moment, and doesn't say, well, because I'm saving the world, killing is no problem, because logistically speaking, I'm going to save thousands by killing 10. You almost never see Perrin make that kind of move.
No, because we just, like a couple chapters ago, he went and confronted Masema's people.
Yeah.
Even though he knew that there was a possibility his mission could be completely, like a complete failure if he angered the prophet.
But if we look at the reaction of the three lads and their different approaches, Rand is totally there now. He's gone cold, so he's gone to a mathematical thing. If I have to,
he's Mr. Pragmatism.
Yeah, if I have to kill half the world, but it saves half the world, totally worth it. If I have to die, but that means everyone else lives, that will happen. Like he's accepting in a very, not nihilistic, but I don't care. Even though he does care, he's trying to harden himself so that he won't. Matt's the opposite. He's just like, I'm just not even going to choose. You've got to make the terrible choice. He's like, nope, I'm going to go to the pub and have a drink. Do you kill Hitler as a child, or do you let him grow up to possibly? Nope. When I see him drowning as a child, I'll walk away and get a drink at the pub. And then
unless they're threatening my friends.
But like for Nat, it's like he wants to be free, right? And then what actually happens, of course, is that his morality, which is based on just himself, and he likes to portray himself as selfish, but actually Nat isn't selfish.
No, anytime he's like anything that's a threat to his friends, that sets him into action.
And or to himself, but yes. But the thing about Matt is that he's avoid responsibility, Perrin is accept responsibility, but in the moment, and the ends don't justify the means. It's journey before destination. But Rand is all about the destination.
Yeah.
And it's all about that final battle, and everything else is justified to lead to that. So it's good that what I'm saying is this book and this chapter is showing us that about Perrinism.
Yeah, like Perrin always wants to do the right thing. He's willing to sacrifice the big picture in order to make sure that the right thing is happening. You know, he doesn't want to just do something that's morally gray because he needs to accomplish something. He wants to make sure every step of that way to accomplish just a task was done the right way.
Perrin best Verin.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel.
That's my hashtag.
I think in my I guess place in life now, I'm probably more of a Perrin fan now. Before I had when I didn't have any big responsibilities, Matt was like my favorite character.
Yeah, because he's fun.
Yeah, now that I'm like responsible, I got things to do, I got kids to take care of. You
sympathize with Perrin more.
Yeah, he has responsibilities. He wants to make sure he's doing the right thing and setting a good example for everybody.
That's straight.
But that's all we're covering for this part. Just up to chapter 9.
Yep.
Next time, I believe we'll be going to chapter 20, maybe chapter 19, possibly. Yeah, chapter 19, because there's only 29 chapters in this book. So we'll go up to 19 in the next spot. Hopefully Andrew can join us next time. I'm not sure. He might be
I'm
busy
sure he'll be
or
okay.
something. Yeah. But I think I'm going to talk to him tomorrow, so I'll ask him what's going on. But tomorrow we're doing John Wick or something.
Oh, John Wick! I just watched a How It Should Have Ended, and in it, like the people are going on, they kill a dog. It's like it's how Vision and Wonder should have ended. And at one point, there's a character in that who explains in a song that she killed a dog, and so during the song, she's like, "And I killed Sparky too," and then it just stops. John Wick shows up and just kills everybody. It's just like brilliant. It's absolutely stunning. That movie I was not expecting to enjoy because I'm usually not into a kill fest, but my goodness, the way it was done was so good, so good. So enjoy your John Wick conversation. For like a murder fest movie, great world building, amazing world building, and for someone who emotes so little, so much emotion. It was awesome.
Oh, you mean Keanu Reeves?
No, I don't just mean Keanu Reeves. I mean specifically John Wick.
Okay.
Because the character John Wick is like he really doesn't, does he? He holds this face of like complete control, and yet the moment when he loses his wife, when the dog is killed, and in just a few minutes at the beginning of the movie, they help you buy into the fact of what that creature represents to him.
Oh yeah,
and then to have that done is so clever that they. I'm like, why do I care so much when you've only
about a dog? Yeah, in the beginning you're like, is this a dog? But they kind of plot it out to show,
why?
This is why the dog is important and what it represents.
But I've also heard people who are like, the bad guy kills all sorts of people, and they're just like, I don't know, they treat it like a computer game, like that the clowns like machine gun down 20 people, and then. As it's leaving, it kicks this dog off a pier, and unlike some of the readers lose their mind at that. I'm like, did you not notice all the random murder? And they're like, he tortured an animal, and you're like, yeah, and slaughtered 23 people. Yeah, but he just did that in a paragraph where he said he shot them, but it described him kicking the dog. I'm like, oh come on! No, but people like their animals, dude. Don't mess with dogs. People get ticked off if you mess with dogs.
Yeah, animals are kind of in the same bracket
Helpless.
as children.
Yeah.
You know.
Helpless, trusting. Yeah. People, by the way, yeah, people do not act well if you have kids killed on screen either. They're like,
No.
oh my goodness.
Kids or children. Kids. But in video games, it's like they try to avoid kids getting killed, I know.
They do, because it's a trigger warning, isn't it? It's like people will like boycott games and boycott movies and stuff over that kind of thing. But the thing is, in a way, I mean, I'm not an advocate for off too heavy stuff, but in a way, if we pretend in fiction it doesn't happen, or people are pretending that it's not something that occurs, and it is something that occurs.
Well, it occurs all the time.
Outrage is justified.
Yeah,
We shouldn't go into gratuitous, but I think all things need to be mentioned. And if we ever get round to doing the knife and doing the First Law trilogy, then we'll investigate exactly why that's the case.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Anyway, over to you, Dusty.
Oh yeah, so tomorrow I think me and Andrew and a couple others are doing that John Wick, and then I think next week, I don't know if Andrew's talked to you, but I think next week he wants to do The Blade itself.
Absolutely.
So if we're ready for that one.
Well, I just wake up.
Yeah, I just re-listened to it. I was like, man, this was definitely better the second time when I understood all the threads that were happening. And so
that reveal at the end, you can only feel that once.
Yeah, true.
But so it's cool for different reasons, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, just like understanding the other threads. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Seeing the foreshadowing when you didn't see it before. Those types of things.
Absolutely.
But we're going to talk about that, I think, next week, Sunday, and then tomorrow, John Wick. For mine, I think we're going to do Logan next week as well, and then I wanted to do, I need to ask Andrew, I don't know if you're interested in this, but we wanted to talk about the Sword of Truth.
Oh, the Sword of Truth. That is an interesting, I own the entire Sword of Truth series.
You do?
Of course I do.
Why?
Well, the thing is, I'm a completionist. So I bought the first one. Actually, I think I bought the first 3 before I'd read one, and I read the whole. And also, I'm not quite as analytical, I guess, as you, Dusty. Like, I'm pretty easy to please, and I'm reluctant to not engage. Like, if we went to see a movie, I would come out and almost certainly say I enjoyed it.
Well, here's the thing about Sword of Truth. I'm definitely going to be critical, but
yeah, absolutely.
I still enjoyed reading it. I thought it was interesting.
I'll tell you, the main issues I had with Sword of Truth is the main couple can do no wrong.
Yeah, basically. I found some of his choices were like morally disgusting.
Yeah, but morally disgusting, this is going to sound awful. Morally disgusting, I'm okay with. No, what I'm saying is, I don't mind if a character makes morally dark choices, especially considering what Richard's looking at, which is the survival of an entire nation. I actually can get behind a little bit that theory of someone has to make those hard choices on numbers.
I don't know, man. The first book, he almost beat a child to death. Like, come on.
Yeah, just to be clear, I'm not a fan of Richard as a character. But what I'm saying is, like, there's arguments that we can have now in 2021 because we're not under threat, right?
Yeah.
But if we were in a situation where we're talking literal survival, and I can't remember what they call it, the Empire or whatever that comes, truly is horrific. Like, the things that they do are horrific, and they don't just happen to one kid; they're happening to nations of children. And so, Yeah, it's crazy. But my main issues with the whole series are Richard and Kalan are just they're super like able to just deal with everything. They are not adequate. Like their flaws that they have are not adequately exposed. The more interesting characters get much less screen time, which is frustrating. And then there is some serious Deus Ex Machina moments. Like whenever they need something to happen, the magic evolves to be able to do it, and that I find frustrating. Very, very frustrating. He literally has a dragon turn up and save the day in book
yes,
one.
yes.
And you're just like, no, and they're like, this was foreshadowed. I'm like, no. So not, but they have some really interesting plot angles, and one of the things is that it does something different than what a lot of other things do because of the nature. Like I really like the idea of additive and subtractive magic. That was very clever. And the idea of how the I forgot what they're called, the women who use pain and
the dominatrixes. I didn't think that was. I know people complain about that.
They complain about that because it's like they see it as BDSM or whatever. But the point is,
who cares? I thought it was fine.
Well, the thing is, if that's what they can do, that's what they can do. If I'm prepared to buy into a world with dragons, I'm prepared to buy into a world that has this kind of magic. But the point is that some of their characters are really interesting, and all of them are shown as basically abuse survivors. And so it shows that their ideas are twisted by what they've been through.
In my opinion, the most interesting character in the first book is that dominatrix lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely she is. The power of the Confessor is interesting. It's just the idea that obviously it doesn't work if you fall in love is just so cliche it hurts. I know I know why he had to do that to make the entire series work, but it was painful. When they do the thing where everyone's forgotten one of the characters and they take her out of the timeline, that is handled very cleverly, I've got to say. And there's the one where he makes the perfect statue, where they're doing his anti-communism one, where you anti-communism. But the book that is particular, like when Richard's not like a king, when he's like acting like a servant, and he basically builds a capitalist masonry company, and he shows how his capitalism idea completely destroys the communist nation from within. That book is a bit fun, I have to say, even though it's so clearly a political commentary. One of the things I found the most difficult to accept is when he meets the pacifists, and he basically says, like, he lies to them, and he's planning to kill them all if they don't change. If they will not fight the enemy, he is going to kill them all. And you're just like,
that's horrible.
It is horrible. Like, pacifism, you may not applaud it, it may feel wrong, like when you're trying to defend your country, that some people won't help you, but the answer to that is not murder. Richard clearly believes by that point that what he thinks is right is what is right, and that I am very much against as a heroic trait. It's not a trait I like. I think people totally have that feeling. I think it's a realistic thing that someone as powerful as him could feel, and someone who's been through what he's been through. I don't think it's unrealistic, but I don't think it should be applauded. And so I would have been like okay with Richard failing. And one of the things I've got to say is I'm trying to offload these books because people don't want them. That tells you something as well. Like, I'm like, I have a entire like Sword of Truth series, same covers, entire set. Someone take them off my hands for 20 quid plus postage, and no one wants them. So that tells you something about the reputation of this series.
Well, I extend to you, if you'd like, the spot if you want to discuss some of these.
Dude, I need to sleep. I'm getting up in 5 hours. So, but like these things kill me. But just Wheel of Time, I don't get to talk about it with people, so like this is like a drug to me. I love being on here. I love talking about the Wheel of Time because it's such a great series. But I just can't do this every week, man. It would just destroy my brain.
Oh no, I understand that. We're not talking about it. Well, yeah. Let Andrew know if you need a little bit of rejuvenation.
No. Because we can do 2 weeks in a row, just we can't do every week in a row.
Oh no, the Wheel of Time ones, I space them out pretty wonderfully.
And I'm fine, but I'll be here for the Blade itself because that's a great book, and it's
but not the Sword of Truth because it sucks.
I think there's a lot to say about the Sword of Truth, but it is not Joe Abercrombie level.
No, the writing's not great.
And just the thing is, you can see that the author, and it's good that we have different authors, right? We wouldn't want everyone to write Jordan, and we wouldn't want everyone to write Sanderson. Well, okay, everyone should write Sanderson. He's the best. No, but like, it's good that Terry Goodkind wrote his own thing, and it will definitely suit certain people. But his fingerprints are heavy on his work, and it's like you can totally see that this guy is ex-CIA and very American, and feels very justified, and feels that people don't understand the need for people to make powerful decisions without the approval of the masses. And but it's interesting to see an authoritarian regime like that portrayed as capitalist friendly and as morally correct. So it was interesting blend. Anyway, good night, my friend, and thanks for running this.
Oh yeah, thank you. And I'll let you know when we cover the second part of the Path of Daggers. Probably going to be at least a month from now.
Yeah, and who would have thought? Some people call this the slog.
I was like,
what were they thinking?
Bad.
I think they call it slog because there's so much character work in it, and not as much blowing of people up.
Well, I found the unraveling of that weave pretty damn exciting.
Yeah, and the use of the bowl, right? So
yeah.
I've heard someone who, a friend of mine who'd read the series, and he said to me, "Oh, you can just like skip, like from book 6 to book 9, you don't really miss anything."
No, you don't.
And I'm like,
hell no.
You cannot do that. Like the Bowl of the Winds resolves like a 3-book long problem. It's like, well, where did that go? And like the amount of channeling development that happens between 6 and 9 is huge, and you're just like, no. But anyway, he thought he could stick to his point, but he was wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Wrong.
Anyway, ciao, Dusty. Enjoy work, and see you next time.
All right, take it easy, and join us next week. And thank you for discussing the book. And hopefully Andrew will be here next time.
Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Bye.
All right, take it easy.